Honey, I'm getting a bit burnt out.
Of course you are. We shoot fire out of our mouths.
No. I think maybe we should take a vacation.
A vacation? Preposterous. We have hunters to kill.
Kill. All you think about is hunters.
That's not true. I also hunt Aptonoth occasionally.
I want to see the world, Losi.
Then just fly up a couple kilometers and look around.
That is not a vacation.
You're never happy. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, there are a number of monsters that are just straight up iconic within the Monster Hunter series. Some for their difficulty, some for their unique mechanics, and some for, well, just sort of being around all the time. So today I think it's time we have a bit of a chat about the flagships. Not just any flagships, but the flagships. Rathalos, who is the flagship of Monster Hunter 1, and the series as a whole, honestly, and Rathian, whose face is literally in the original Monster Hunter logo. Rathalos is the first flying wyvern that was ever fought in the series, literally the urgent quest to unlock 5-star quests within Monster Hunter 1, and Rathian is unlocked immediately afterwards. Back when Rathalos was first introduced, his fight was, well, a little bit infuriating. He spent almost half the quest timer just flying around literally out of range of reach, even if you were a ranged weapon, switching zones, just being the king of the skies as he's known to be, I guess. Over time, his fight has undoubtedly gotten better and better than that, and in Rise and Sunbreak, I think it is genuinely the best that it has ever been. It has gotten more challenging, he has a lot of change-up moves that actually use his fire in somewhat more interesting ways, but I think that's sort of necessary for what it is, because the thing is, even though it is the best that it's ever been, it's only sort of marginally better. It's only sort of marginally changed. Why does it need to change though? Well, because he's been in literally every Monster Hunter game ever made. Every single one, as has Rathian as well. Rathalos was even the protagonist monster of Monster Hunter Stories and Monster Hunter Stories 2. There have been 2 Stories games, and both of them feature Rathalos as the main monster character, which all in itself I think is sort of hilarious. I understand why it is, I know why it happens. I mean, aside from the hunters themselves, Rathalos is just the most prominent figure in the entire series.
He's the main character, right?
However, in the grand scheme of things, if you exclude that information, if you don't think about him as the flagship of the series, is he even all that interesting? Sure, I mean, back in Monster Hunter 1, he was a legend, but these days, especially for hunters who started their Monster Hunter journey in more recent games, he is actually quite tame of a design compared to most of the roster. He's about as close to a classic dragon as you can get, except for the fact that he has 2 legs instead of 4. His main weapons are flying around and fireballs, and while there is nothing wrong with a simple design, he definitely is a simple design. A simple design done excellently, of course, but simple nonetheless. As for Rathian, she realistically is just Rathalos, but easier. The backflip attack is cool, don't get me wrong, but everything else she does outside of the backflip is just sort of meaningless. She has become a bit of a punching bag for a lot of hunters, and yet it's worth mentioning that while both of these monsters have been in every Monster Hunter game, they don't just come by themselves either. They come in absolute bunches. Subspecies, rare species, deviants, burst species, special species, zeniths. There is a wrath in pretty much every subcategory of monster that's ever been invented. In fact, there are 13 different Rathalos, if you count the fact that the live-action Monster Hunter movie used a Rathalos that they called Greater Rathalos to justify his increased size. And there are 7 Rathians too, not to mention a monster simply referred to as Unknown in Frontier, which is considered a combination of Rathian and Rathalos together. Even if we don't count the one that's just in the movie, that makes 20 monsters out of around 400 large monsters in the entire series, counting every spin-off of the games. That's about 5% of the monsters in the entire series. 1 in 20 monsters is a wrath. Even just in recent years, Rise and Sunbreak have both base wraths, both rare species wraths, and each wrath has an apex as well, so there are 6 of them in Sunbreak right now. In Iceborne, we had the base wraths, the subspecies wraths, and the rare species wraths. Again, 6 different wraths. Generations Ultimate had base wraths, rare species wraths, and the new deviant wraths. I could go on, but the point is that every Monster Hunter game is just loaded up with both of these monsters and variations of each of them. They make up a notable chunk of every Monster Hunter game that has ever happened, and it begs a simple question as far as I'm concerned. Should the wraths take a break? As far as the developers are concerned, the answer is obviously no. But let me lay something out for a moment. When 6 monsters in every Monster Hunter game are Rathalos and Rathian and different versions of them that just takes up a load of roster spots. Spots that could be new monsters, spots that could be other returning monsters that haven't come back for ages and ages, or new variations on other monsters. Instead, we get Raths, Raths, and more Raths. Honestly, even if we just had the base Raths and no other versions of them for a generation, I think that would probably be enough, because I doubt they'd ever leave them out entirely. But even then, what if they did? Because the thing is, at least for me, when you fight a monster in every single Monster Hunter game back to back, they start to have less meaning.
I need a break.
Time spent apart makes the heart grow fonder, as they say. Think about how happy everyone was to see something like Sorikio show up in Sunbreak, or Gore Magala. Yes, of course, that is because they are well-loved monsters, but it's also because we haven't seen them for a few years. If they were in every single game since their introduction, they wouldn't be quite as exciting to see. They would just be standard, they would be expected, and the only thing interesting would be seeing how they interact with the new combat mechanics, and if there had been any slight changes to their movesets. Both Rathalos and Rathian are great monsters, don't get me wrong, but I just think it's time that we took a break from them for a game. I've always said that while it would be likely logistically impossible due to the requirements of making it, the best possible Monster Hunter game that could ever happen would be one that had absolutely zero returning monsters, all new from start to finish, almost like Monster Hunter 1. It would be mind-blowing and stunning, like experiencing the series for the first time all over again. No expectations for the monsters, just experiencing new things over and over back to back non-stop. Now, this probably won't ever happen, but there is a gradient to this idea. The more stuff that returns, the more we know what to expect, and also the more recent these returning things, the same applies, but even further. If we get Rathalos again in Monster Hunter 6, it'll be Rathalos. You might have a change or two, but he will be Rathalos. If we get Duramboros in Monster Hunter 6, who knows? We'll know his base concepts, but his entire moveset could realistically be different. After all, we haven't seen him in ages. What about Hypnocatrice, who literally has not touched the main series since the second generation? Not only would it be a surprise for even veteran players, it would be crazy for people who have only played Monster Hunter games that released after that. That is part of why I think Espinas coming into Sunbreak was so hyped for so many people, as it was a monster that is returning, yes, but had only ever existed in Frontier before now, a game which the vast majority of the fanbase of the series has just never had the opportunity to play. Hunters had seen the monster, maybe even seen people fight the monster, but they've not experienced it themselves, and so the ability to do so was essentially just a whole new experience for everyone. It felt like a whole new monster for them, even though it wasn't technically a new monster. What about Rathalos and Rathian? Would it be possible for them to ever feel that way? Not really, if you ask me at this point, but if they took a break for a game and came back a generation later, or even stayed out of a base game and came back in the expansion for it, that would leave them some actual room for decently significant changes. You could make them more challenging, you could change up their moveset in more reasonable ways, and that would make it more of an, oh hey, it's them, nice to see ya, rather than currently where it's just, it's time for this part of the Monster Hunter game once again. Because it is a part of every Monster Hunter game. It is expected and understood that you will always fight these two monsters, which in my opinion just makes them less exciting to see. Though, to play devil's advocate to myself a little here, is that really a bad thing? The games don't necessarily have to be about pure excitement. They don't have to be about surprises. After all, a new monster is only truly new the first couple of times that you fight it. After that, you learn it, you train against it, and you understand it enough to fight it like any other creature that you've seen in the series. And honestly, the majority of playtime in a Monster Hunter game for most people is after the story itself is over, just hunting whatever monster you feel like on loop for hundreds of hours, either with friends or even just by yourself, enjoying the mechanics of the gameplay itself.
I want to do it again. I want to do it again.
Once you reach this part, it becomes a bit less important if the monster is a surprise or not. However, that said, every new fight is a different experience from the other fights. My favorite monster to fight in base Monster Hunter Rise was Gos Harag. I fought him over 100 times in the first month or so after release. I just absolutely loved the pace and feel of hunting him with the hunting horn, which was my main weapon, as well as loving the design of the creature itself. It may have lost the surprise surprise factor pretty soon after the first couple of hunts, but hunting him as a whole was simply an experience I'd not gotten from any other Monster Hunter game that I've played, and I really enjoyed doing it, and that is sort of where I'm coming from here. I did that. I spent that time hunting that monster because it all felt new, it felt different, and I enjoyed doing it. I would never really do that with the Rathalos, because honestly I've already hunted hundreds of Raths over the years, especially if you count all the variations on the original too, and I did all that without trying to, all without a specific internal desire to do so. It just happened because that's the way the games are laid out. I'm not saying these monsters are bad, I just think that if they took a break, maybe they could come back truly, meaningfully different, meaningfully better than they have ever been, and inspire people to actually seek out hunting them once more. What do you think? Am I wrong on this? Are the Raths a treasure that must be left undisturbed? I know the main thing here is simply history, tradition. It is almost a rite of passage within any Monster Hunter game to go against these creatures, but is that a necessity, or is it something that we could try going without for just a little bit, just to see what else would replace it? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.